My lord, all the jesters are within the castle's walls. Lock the gates. Lock the gates.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Daniel. You're listening to Analyze This, a podcast about whatever we want to talk about. And today's topic is going to be sports. In reference to sports, it's going to be Formula One, which I know absolutely nothing about it except that some cars go in a circle and something about the Indianapolis 500. So if they go around 500 times, they win. But we have the expert of Formula One, which is my brother John, and he's going to join us and talk about what Formula One is all about. So before we get started, let me just recap on our last episode, which we talked about when shit hits the fan, survival, and radios, and things like that. I just want to read a quick post that came out at the ARRL, the Amateur Radio League, and it reads as follows. Amateur radio saves family in Death Valley National Park. Death Valley National Park is in a remote desert in South California where mobile phone networks are spotty at best. On Saturday, April 6th, a radio amateur and his family were enjoying the park when their vehicle became stuck in the mud in a dangerous area. Without access to a cell phone network, the ham caller called for help on the 10-meter band. So another amateur was listening into that band. He heard the signal and posted on the park's website saying, "Hey, this is what I heard. Go investigate." So several hams contacted the emergency officials in South California, which led to the ham and their family to be rescued. So ham radio, very important in a situation like this. It happens all the time. And if you want to learn more about that, listen to podcast number 6, which we talked about different types of radio. In addition to that, I added links to my top picks of the radio. So if you go to our website, analyzethispodcast.com, you're going to see my name. You click on that, you're going to see my picks, and they are affiliate links. So if you want to purchase something, you can. It will take you directly to Amazon. So hopefully, John will have his own picks on what he likes. He also has a page on our website for his favorite picks, and we'll see what he comes up with. John, go ahead and introduce yourself, and I will tell you about what I know about sports and Formula One.
First, I was going to say the Indianapolis 500 is not Formula One. That's IndyCar at best. They look similar, but they're different, right? So, everybody knows NASCAR, right? And, for those that don't know, NASCAR kind of arose from the moonshiner days, right? Where, you had to make as fast as possible of a car to outrun the law, right? So the whole concept of the oval is visually it's an oval, but in the car it feels like you're driving in a straight line, essentially, right? That's why it's banked on the corners and the curves there, and they're like, oh, they're just going in circles. Where's the joy in that? Well, imagine going as fast as you possibly can in a straight line and trying to keep your car straight, but you also have to account for those dips and those rises, the gradient on the road for that. So then you have Formula One. So I skipped over the whole IndyCar. Then you have Formula One, which is essentially giant go-karts, right? And all of these drivers start in go-karts from like 5 years old, sometimes even younger. IndyCar is kind of the mix between both, where the cars look a little bit like Formula One cars, but they mainly do the oval type of deal as NASCAR. As of recent years, NASCAR and IndyCar have done what's called road tracks, where you're actually making turns, and that's where Formula One is. So Formula One only does road tracks, right? They don't do the oval type of racing within there. So to kind of put you in the mindset of what a Formula One car is. Actually, I have a little toy here, right? So, this is what Formula One cars look like, right? They look like, sorry, there we go. Get the angle on it, right? They look like go-karts, right? So they're open wheel racing, right? And it's considered the world's most expensive car park when all these cars are sitting there, because each one of these bad boys, I mean, technically, if you really factor in the R&D for the engines and stuff, each of these bad boys are about $15 million, right?
Get out of here.
Yep. So the engine alone is about 10 to 12 million, because it's made out of a block of compressed sand, essentially, and it's then kind of carved away into what we traditionally see. So right now they are on 6-cylinder engines right now, 1.4 liter 6-cylinder turbocharged engine. So that engine block is etched out of compressed sand, right? And we know how strong sand is, right? So as the races go on, the engines deteriorate and you lose power and you lose performance. So I'm going to kind of jump around on the stuff that I think is most exciting for folks. The teams are only allowed 4 engines per year, right? For what is this year, 23 races or 24 races. So they have to kind of decide, hey, when should I change that engine, right? Because that engine only has but so much life in it, right? And then all components of the car have a limit of the number of components that they have. So to give you a breakdown on cost as well, too, right? Each wheel on a Formula One car is about $60,000, right? And they'll go through 10 sets in a weekend. So you're talking nearly $250,000 per set, and they'll go through 10 of those sets in a weekend. So you're talking $2 million at that point, right? And then the back end assembly is $500,000. So this past race, Logan Sargent, he's actually an American racer. Funny enough, he grew up 15 miles away from the Miami GP, which is the race that just occurred this past weekend. He was tagged while going through a corner and ended up hitting the barrier back of the car first. The wing assembly broke off. That's $500,000 worth of damage minimum, right? If you destroy
so let me
the
stop
chassis.
you there for a second.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you my attitude.
Now you know why I like this, right? This is a lot of nerdy little number stuff in there.
I'm going to tell you my attitude about sports and car racing and things like that. If I'm not participating in it, if I don't know anyone who's participating in it, I really don't care of the final scores or anything like that. Now, hearing the idea of a $15 million engine, that is insane.
Yep.
$60,000 for a tire?
That's factoring in the R&D for the engine as well, too. But if you have a big accident, right? These cars are driving on rails, right? The amount of G-forces in this car, you can technically, in the old video games, you do the tunnel run and you drive around the tunnel and it sticks to the tunnel. These cars are capable of doing that. And this year is called ground effect cars, where as they're driving, they're literally vacuuming the floor, to the point where last year was the first year they did the Las Vegas GP in like 40 years or something like that. I might be wrong on the number. They welded, it was a street race, right? Street race is when they take the actual street and they make a track out of it, a temporary track. So they drove right down the strip of Vegas. The power of the suction of the car was strong enough to rip a manhole out of the ground that was welded into the ground. Like the cap was welded down too. The whole assembly was ripped out of the ground, and another car came along, Charles Leclerc on Ferrari, hit it. And you got to imagine, when you're sitting in this car, you're 4 inches off of the ground. So he felt that all in his ass, right? It was enough to crack the chassis. That damage was written off at about $4 million in damage, $3 million in damage. So, because they literally have to salvage parts, right? So if a piece of the wing breaks off, that's carbon fiber. They're like, there was one race a couple years ago, the COVID year, where it was really constrained, or actually 2021, just after the budget was really constrained. A piece fell off of the Red Bull, and the team principal was like, hey, by chance, can you guys find that and bring it back to us? We need it. Because they didn't have money. They didn't have the budget cap space to add pieces onto it. So I'll bring you into why I like Formula One, right? So that whole technical side, please enjoy it on the Formula One. You pulled up that page a couple times there. Tons and tons and tons of resources you can see on there. I learned to love Formula One during COVID, quite honestly. Just like all of us, sorry, let me fix my mic. I just realized something was loose here. Might have been given feedback. So COVID, right? Lockdown, blah, 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 all that stuff in there, right? I was kind of starting to fall out of love with football, but up until that point, the only sport I watched was football. The one thing that bothered me is I tried to watch a football game right smack dab in the middle of COVID, and obviously there were no fans, right? So, NFL wanted to protect their pride. They didn't want to show the stands were empty, right? And it's like, well, obviously it's empty. So it was like really weird camera angles. So where normally you'll see the field, you had like most of the views were like this close of the players, right? Because they're just trying to give you a reason to not look for the
I remember
fans.
seeing some videos about having either pictures or mannequins on the stand, which to me was ridiculous.
They developed into that, and this is why, right? So the football game that I watched was one of the first couple that they were trialing when they just started to open things back up again, right? So not only was weird angles, they were pumping fake sound into the game because they said, the players are used to having that sound. Imagine going to a club and it's silent, right? It's going to be really hard to dance, right? They're adjusted to the sound. I'm like, hey, fair enough. That makes sense, right? Because that's part of what gets the adrenaline pumping. What threw me off is that as, a consumer on the opposite end, as someone who was sitting there watching it, it sounded no different from any other weekend. And I was like, hold on. So they're always pumping fake sound in there, right? And it just completely threw me off. And I kid you not, I did not watch another football game up until like this past January or whenever they did playoffs last. I was trying to watch a football game. Steelers was my favorite team. Steelers was in the playoffs. I fell asleep in the first quarter. I just could not fall in love with it. So during that time, everybody's binge watching shows. I think I was only working 2 days a week for that month and change. I found a show called Drive to Survive on Netflix. And it was essentially the behind the scenes of Formula One. Right. They had their little spice on top, but this was like one of the first couple of seasons where they didn't really do the spice. And I thought to myself, I'm like, this is incredible. I'm like, I've always seen these cars and I always YouTube the bad crashes, but I never actually watched a race before. So binge watched all that whole season. Right. And then I was going to go and watch that season. Right. And then it was postponed. It got postponed because COVID kicked off, and it was like, oh shit, right? I was like, oh man, this is like a really big deal, right? They invested millions of bucks into there. So anyway, I downloaded the Formula One app. You were just on that page there before, F1 TV Pro, which allowed you to basically watch every season, right? For the past few years, if you get a subscription, it's like $80 a month. I'm sorry, $80 for the year. I'm not endorsed by them. I just really love this sport, and I think you get the most out of it in that sense. I don't even think that they do them. I just truly just love the app, right?
Well, so if you do have one, go ahead and put it up on the website, because if you can get $2 out of that promo, go right ahead.
Heck yeah, I'm gonna find to see if I got a promo or referral option in my account in there. But what I thought was really cool with this is that when you actually go into it and you're using the resource, you're able to see all the telemetry, right? And what the telemetry is understanding their lap splits, their sector speeds, their microsector speeds, how old their tires are, the ground temperature versus the air temperature, right? And all of this matters, right? Because I'll be watching the race sometimes, right? And not much will be going on. To your point, cars are just going in circles, right? And because of the downforce, it's hard to pass. So for whatever reason, they're managing their tires, right? Because these tires are very delicate. They go through at least 2 sets a race. So I was watching a race and the barometer dropped by 2 points. And I said, oh, something changed, right? As far as atmosphere changed. The barometer dropped 2 points, and obviously the strategists noticed this. Suddenly, pit stop, pit stop, pit stop, pit stop. This person cut that person off, cut off, crash, boom. Now we have a red flag, right? And now they got to reassess the whole game again. So I enjoyed it. I think what made me fall in love with it was watching Drive to Survive and just my sort of strategy-based mindset and, you know, problem solving. You like really learn to appreciate their thought process, especially the strategists and team principals. Very, very sharp, business savvy people, right? And you're making decisions on the fly, because in Formula One, you could be 1,000th of a second slower than the person in front of you. But that's the difference between first place and second place. You can't even fathom 1,000th of a second, right? Like the time difference within there, right? And then, you know, watching a race and being able to predict yourself, like, hey, the barometer just dropped, something's going to happen. Hey, the temperature just dropped, something's going to happen, right? Oh, this guy's at 27 lap old tires, and based on this weekend, that tire should only go for 30. They're going to have to pit stop in the next 2 laps. So they're going to be hauling ass all the way through, right? So for me, watching the race with all the data makes it worth your while, right? But if you don't have that data, you can still enjoy it. My thing is, you know, just like any other sport, they're going to do what's cool. So I usually have the main feed going. Plus, I'll have a bunch of driver cams going as well, too. Again, all features of F1 Pro. So I'm going to find some kind of referral link. Y'all sign up. It's worth it. And then I watch all the telemetry on the side along with the track map within there. If you're just watching the actual broadcast, it's not enjoyable, right? Because it's whoever's opinion has the mic is what your perspective is going to be told to you of the race, right?
So I think that's the reason why I'm like, it's no big
exactly. Deal. And then the other issue to it as well, too, the only cars getting camera time are cars within a second of each other, and that time is decreasing because it's the most likely opportunity for action.
So how do you put the difference in reference to seeing it on television and watching the stats compared to being in a stadium? Because in the stadium, you don't have the stats.
So I went last year to the Miami GP. My wife got me some tickets for that as a Christmas gift. And all I was thinking about was, I can't wait to go home and rewatch it with my telemetry. And the reason why, it's so funny, right? Because my wife was like, what, you didn't like it? It wasn't good enough seats? Like, no, we were in the grandstands. We were in the best seats you can have of the place, right? We had a whole total experience and everything. I was like, no, that's not the thing. But sitting here in the grandstands, it takes a minute and 40 seconds, 30 seconds to get around the lap in the race. So whoever your favorite driver is or whatever battle you're trying to watch, you get to see 3 seconds worth of it every minute and 40 seconds, right? So you're like, right? And then the rest of it, you're just watching the TV broadcast on the giant screen in front of you. And quite honestly, we walked away feeling like we had like sun poisoning because it was so hot, right? It's Miami, Florida. I said, man, that was one hell of an experience. The one thing I would say, you cannot replicate the sound that these engines make. And they're only 6 cylinders now. They used to be like V10s in the past, right? And even V12s. They're only 6 cylinders, but the roar that it makes, it just makes you go, ooh. Listen,
talk about the sound engine makes. I'm going to change topics from Formula One to monster trucks because I did go to a monster truck event and it was indoors. My mistake. I did not take earplugs or ear protection. Yeah. Those freaking things are like 8 cylinders with no mufflers, just like open headers. The sound, it's like inside your head. You can feel the vibration.
Just bringing it back to Formula One, the technology that they have in place, there's literally some aerodynamicists and car designers that were offered to work for NASA. The technology that is in this car, if they put wings on it, it'll be in space. Like, that's the craziness of this. How fast they go. They make their own fuel for it and everything. if you put wings on these cars, and there has been, right? There's incidents where a car's going and they hit enough of a bump and it's literally takeoff. If they had wings, it'll be on the way to us to land, right? So I think that's the main difference, is being in person to actually see that and feel it within your soul. But as far as, that's an experience within its own, right? As far as if you want to really get the ins and outs of the race, I guess, or if you want to follow your favorite driver's entire race, then watching it on that sort of app is the best way to go, because you'll have, your driver feed open and you're watching what they see as they're driving, right? And it feels like you're in there, right? That's like what did it for me, like, especially like being in person. I'm like, oh man, this is nuts, right? So even now, like, I have a sim seat. So where you can sit and it leans me back as if I'm in Formula One. I have a Formula One steering wheel. Actually, I'll show you my steering wheel. I just moved.
You've gotten all the way with this, haven't you?
Yeah. It's fun. I did it all in pieces, man, too. But I just recently moved, as I was telling you last week, so I don't have my stuff set up. But this is my Formula One wheel. Sorry, I messed up my lighting.
Does that plug into the seat itself?
Yep. So this, you see the connector right there. It goes right into the steering wheel. It's a force feedback steering wheel as well, too, right? There you go. Fix my lighting. So you can see it better now too. It's a force feedback steering wheel. This is an exact replica of a Ferrari steering wheel that they actually used in a race. So the size, the buttons, everything within here. So here's the craziest part about Formula One as well, too, right? In the race, I mean, mid-lap, mid-corner, you're adjusting the car. You're changing the differential. You're changing the brake bias. You're changing the recharge on it. And I do all that as well too, right? So you see my diff indicator is over here. So as I'm racing, depending on, if I'm going to a little more windy section of the track and I want the back end a little more loose, I might loosen up the diff, right? If I want to, maybe I'm having trouble and I'm a little oversteery. So here's oversteer and understeer is a term you'll hear a lot if you ever watch a Formula One race. And the easiest way to put it is, when you oversteer, you hit the wall with your ass. When you understeer, you hit the wall with your front, right? So the car's not turning enough, or the car is turning too much. So you're adjusting your diff as you go along. So I think you can see me. So literally, this is how I'm racing. I'm adjusting the diff, and on this side over here, this is going to be your recharge. So I can either deploy more kinetic energy, because these are turbo engine cars and they use a kinetic energy store turbo system within there. But keeping it low because it keeps messing up the lighting. But I could change the charge on it in there. So there's a function of the cars called DRS, drag reduction system. So if you see that little green tab right there, that's technically a flap that when you hit the button, the flap opens up and you have less drag, so you're faster on a straight. In order to be able to use that, you have to be within 1 second of the car in front of you in a detection zone, and then you can hit it on the next DRS zone. So every track has at least one of those, and it's usually on the main straight and then any other straight. It has to be on a straight because, again, these cars operate with downforce. So if you have an issue with DRS, your drag reduction system, and you try to turn, you're going airborne. It's done. So that's the importance of having it on a straight, because obviously you have to hit your brakes before you turn. When you hit your brake, it makes the flap close and then you're able to turn. There's a couple of accidents. I think Mark Webber, he used to drive for Red Bull. DRS didn't close. He went to turn. He went airborne. So there's a lot of crazy stuff. But within here also, so these are fake settings on my remote just because we don't have that function. But you can literally change the boost that the car is getting. You could change the amount of string you're putting on the tire, basically like the toe in a sense to the tire. You could change your grip level, how much engine braking, right, or how much grip you throw into the rear. You can change your fuel mixture as you're going along. You can change your what is it called again? Your revolutions per minute, right? You could change where the engine is happy to switch at and everything there. So you literally, and you're doing all this while doing about 200 miles an hour. So imagine that piece as well too.
It sounds to me that you are a 30-something-year-old in a 20-something body with a job and buying all these toys.
Let me tell you. And then, so not only that, definitely a big one, right? So not only that, right? So this is just going off again as well too. So Formula One, doing all that fun stuff there. PlayStation came out with a VR system, right?
Oh, you got to be
So
kidding.
I jumped the gun and I ordered the VR, hoping I was going to be able to play it on Formula One 2023. Formula One 2023 came out and you can't use it. And the reason why you can't use it on there is because Sony has their own game called, and you probably know this one, Gran Turismo, right? So that's produced by Sony, Gran Turismo 7. For that bad boy, I pop on the VR and I got this steering wheel.
Isn't that VR thing like $3,000 or $4,000?
Oh no, hell no! That was $400. That bad boy.
Oh, okay.
No, the $4,000 one is that Apple Vision Pro crap. I won't. Hell no. But so here's the crazy thing, right? So the system I use is a force feedback system, right? And maybe one podcast I'll just be doing races as we talk, right? Just for the hell of it on there. But it feels like you're getting that resistance when you're turning. So when I was playing the GT7 one time, this is just a quick anecdote. I was doing a time trial where I had to do a left, right, left, and I had to do it, in X amount of time. I kept missing it by hundredths and thousandths of a second. Again, imagine 100th and 1,000th of a second. Yeah, it's really hard to imagine. I was so in tune, right? And it felt so real to me that when I finally did it, I kid you not, Daniel, I slapped the dash and I went like this. I was like, oh, time to get off. Throw that thing off. I was so in tune. You feel like you're driving in there. So back to the Formula One stuff, though. You'll do a turn at 150 miles an hour, and we're talking it's on rails on there. But with that being said, it's a very, very dangerous sport. There's only 20 drivers in the world that get to operate at Formula One. There's Formula 2, which typically has 22 to 24, then 3, 4, and then you'll have like Formula Europe, Formula this, Formula that, different, sub-series of everyone who's trying to make it to Formula One. And the main thing is single-seater open wheel, right? So they're giant go-karts, essentially. That's what they are. That's where all these folks start at. Through the years, though, a lot of drivers have died, and there's a lot of safety features in there. So there's one piece right here. You see this little bracket right there? Called the Halo. Bar? Yep. So it's called the Halo. So in the past, that Halo did not exist. So the driver was just sitting there and
get decapitated.
Open space. Yes. Jules Bianchi got decapitated a couple years ago. I think it was like 2018, 2017. I might be wrong on the year. But essentially, they were racing in Japan. It was a wet track. Someone went off the track. There was a cherry picker picking that car up off the road. He lost control and he hit the back of the cherry picker, and unfortunately, they brought him to the hospital, but he did not make it. He ended up passing away. So they implemented the Halo. End of 2020, when I moved to Florida, beginning of 2021, I was showing my niece Formula One, right? Because she was into it. She's like, "Yeah, I want to watch a race with you." And we were watching one of the last races of the season, Bahrain. And there was a second to last. It was the penultimate. There was one more race after that. So there was this driver, Roman Grosjean, for Haas. It's actually an American team, the only American team operating in the Formula One circuit. But essentially what occurred was on the start, someone crashed in front of him, lost their wing. When he hit the wing, when your front tires are off the ground, you're just a passenger. There's nothing you can do, right? He careened into, like when you're on the highway, you see those silver like bar barriers, that they're kind of wide. I don't know what they're called. Yeah. He hit it.
Oh, the side rails, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, the side rails. There you go, the side rails. When he hit it, the Halo, thankfully, was there, because if not, he would have been decapitated. When he hit it, it spread open those crash bars, but the force was so strong, the back of the car ripped off and exploded. Huge fireball. Boom! He was stuck in the fire for about a minute and change. And medical car. So whenever they start a race, the medical car starts behind them, because first lap incidents are the most common because everyone's bunched up. That was the first lap incident. Turn 2, hit the wall, car blew up. The medical safety guy ended up helping him pull him out of fire. His hands and his feet got burned. He was actually trapped, but he got himself out. But they wear fire retardant suits and everything within there. Burnt his feet, burnt his hands, and he didn't race Formula One again after that. He was going to retire anyway, but they were like, "You're hurt anyway. You can't do your last race of the year." On the dollar side, that's, $15 million written off because everything's destroyed in that explosion, right? On the other hand, you can't put a value on life. So they're always adding more and more safety measures and security measures in there because, these cars are doing 200, 250. The fastest speed that was recorded was by Valtteri Bottas. He currently drives for Stake Sauber, who's about to be Audi in a couple of years. In Russia, he hit, I think, 340 kmph, which is like 270 or 240, somewhere in there. I don't know the conversion. We use American speed.
we have about 3 minutes for this podcast. Bottom line is that the expense or the cost of a Formula One car can actually feed a small country.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they use enough energy to power that small country for a couple months too.
And I did look up why it's called Formula and Formula One. And this is my Wikipedia search.
I never actually looked it up.
Yeah, I did because I don't know anything about it.
I never did. I don't know.
So it's supposedly the word formula came from the idea of the rules that the participants needs to follow.
Makes sense.
And
that's an interesting concept.
That's basically all I got out of it. It's the rules that they have to follow. So that's the formula that they have to abide by.
Yeah,
and
makes sense. This sport is very heavily European British influence. So they use silly terms.
So then you say that there's Formula 3, 2, and 1. And I'm assuming that those 4. Are like different grades, like almost like like minor league, little league.
Exactly.
I don't know what the other sports are.
So and then they also have to be able to race Formula One as well too. You need what's called a super license, and through those series, based on their wins and where they're finishing at, that's what makes them eligible for a super license. So at the end of the day, if you're not good, you're not winning. So if you're not good, you shouldn't be in Formula One anyway. That's kind of like it kind of keeps itself honest in that sort of sense. But the main thing I'd say behind it is I think the biggest point I can just reiterate is if they put wings on this bad boy will be on the way to Mars, right? There's a lot of innovation and technology that goes into these vehicles, and it's so much more than just what they show on TV. It does such a disservice of what they show on TV. So I encourage, even if you can just try it out, I'll see if I have a referral link in there. But even if you just try out something like that, just watching it with the data piece on it, I think you find a whole new appreciation to it, right? Or even checking out Drive to Survive on Netflix. Again, I'm not getting no promo from them, but I'll see if I can. Right. But Drive to Survive, especially the first couple seasons, the third and fourth one, they tried to dramatize it too much to attract a bigger crowd, and they kind of got in trouble with the Formula One drivers. They were like, don't play that shit with us. So they had to revert back on the most recent. So I say the first couple of seasons of Drive to Survive is definitely worth watching. You're a pilot guy, watch the pilot of the first 2 seasons on there. I think it'll give you a little bit of insight into my brain there. But now I'm hooked, man. I do it all the time. I can't wait actually to set up my rig again and race again.
So make sure you take a little video or pictures so that we can share it with the audience.
I'm gonna do the next time we meet. I'm gonna do the whole episode while I'm driving. What's so crazy, man, is you'll drive, right? And I like to do the whole sessions, right? So I'll say this really quick too. A Formula One weekend consists of usually about 4 sessions. So you have practice 1, practice 2, practice 3, I guess 5 sessions. Practice 1, practice 2, practice 3, qualifying, and then the race. So it'll be Friday, practice 1 and 2, Saturday, practice 3 and qualifying, race on Sunday. Unless there's a sprint weekend, then you'll have practice 1, sprint shootout, which is the sprint qualifying, sprint race, Grand Prix qualifying, and then the race. So it's always 5 sessions, an hour long on each session except for the race, which has a maximum runtime of 4 hours. And what that means is if the race is supposed to start at 12 o'clock and there's a horrific accident and that accident takes 3 hours and 59 minutes to complete, well, the race is going to be done in 1 minute. And if depending on the number of laps that were completed, the result will be pretty much completely nullified if they didn't really get to do anything, or they'll get partial points, because that's a whole nother thing we could get into. Also,
Right,
prize money.
Our
after that.
outro music is already playing over our voices, so let's wrap it up and make sure that everyone visits the AnalyzeThisPodcast.com website, look at the links, and hopefully John will put up some of these little toys that he's playing with. Apart from that, have a good day, everyone.
We're gonna make it a cheap way for everybody to have fun.